Back on the road. I think it's our third and four on the road. Obviously playing at a really tough spot. Tennessee's obviously really good at home. Really good in general this year. I think they've only lost one at home. Um, Coming off two huge wins, both on the road at Alabama and at Georgia. Had a lot of step up in those games, and kind of similar to us last week when we won two on the road. Kind of changed the trajectory of their season, and they physically just kind of went in there and punked both teams, and that's what they're really capable of doing. Have some really good pieces. Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament are an absolute handful. They're combining for half their points essentially in conference so far this year. Both bring different dimensions to what they do, and we're gonna have our hands full trying to guard those guys, and then they got a bunch of guys that just know what they're supposed to do, and they do a great job at it. So, best offensive rebounding team in college basketball. In their SEC wins, they're averaging 20 offensive rebounds per game. It's just nuts. We're while Florida was a battle, this one's going to be that and some as far as trying to keep these guys off the offensive glass. And then historically we've had a hard time scoring on Tennessee. Told our guys if you want to do something that last year's team couldn't do, and that'd be like score more than 50 points on Tennessee because we couldn't do that last year. Coach Barnes has done an unbelievable job. With everything that they've accomplished and all the success that they've had, they play with a different level of toughness and physicality and grit, and it's served them well. So another phenomenal opportunity for our guys, to try and beat one of the best programs in our league over the last 10, 11 years. So take any questions.
Stephen, you've talked about, I think, a couple of times after Florida and after this last game where you're not sure if this team would have won that game 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Do you attribute that to fundamentals on the court, a mental thing, maybe just a belief in what they're doing? And then could you go back 3 weeks and see it coming? Like, were there small things you think back and go, there's a thing I saw or a thing that happened that now looking back, I could connect to what they're doing now?
I think we've just been really consistent in our routine as far as what we've been doing after every game, as far as learning from our mistakes and learning from the good things that we did. And all that means nothing if you don't apply it to the next game. I think our guys have done a good job of applying it to the next game for the most part. After we started 0-2, we were 1-3, and I was like, we're getting better. And no one wanted to hear that, and everybody thought I was crazy for saying it. But I saw what practice was like every day. We had great energy in practice, and the guys were just locked in, just stayed consistent with our film preparation, what we did in film, our preparation in the scouts, and ultimately it's led to 4 straight and 5 out of our last 6. So I just think more than anything, through ups and through downs, we've been consistent in conference play and everything that we've done, and we got to continue to do so if we want to keep trying to get better.
You mentioned the rebounding, but is this another one where you kind of go in like the Florida game and be like, all right, if you don't check out on every possession, they're just going to throw it off the backboard against y'all?
Yeah. If winning is important to you and that's what matters, then you'll check out every possession. If you don't, they're going to make you look stupid. They had 26 offensive rebounds at Georgia. Made them. I mean, if Georgia gets if they get one less offensive rebound, Georgia probably wins the game. It's not just offensive rebounds. In their SEC wins, 20 offensive rebounds, and they're scoring like 18 second chance points off those. So it's like it's turning into points. So if Georgia could have just held them to one less, they probably win that game. So it's a really important part of the game, and they do such a good job of just physically crashing every single possession. And they have multiple bigs that can just kind of come in droves and be effective. They had 2 guys that had 7 offensive rebounds in the last game. Just nuts. So, if winning is important to our guys, we'll physically check out every possession. If it's not, then, we'll look silly.
Ted's got it here in the notes. You guys are 55% from the floor in the second half in your wins. this season? I know you talked about Burgo and how good of a job he did in that Texas game, but just how nice has it been this season to not only have somebody that you trust so much to make adjustments offensively, but somebody that you're very familiar with in terms of y'all coaching together?
Yeah, I mean, it's one testament to Mike and making adjustments at halftime, but two, it's I think our guys have done a good job of understanding that early in games teams are fresh, and teams are going to guard you a little bit differently than they will in the latter 20 minutes. And as long as we trust what our game plan is and just continue to do those things, like ultimately teams will break down. And when teams get tired, what do? They foul, and that's what's kind of happened in the second half of games this year. So, Mike's done a great job making adjustments, and our guys have done a great job of just being locked into the things that we need to continue to do in order to attack what they do. Tennessee historically has been one of the best defenses in college basketball every single year, and they've given us a ton of fits on the offensive end, and we've struggled to manufacture points. So it's going to be another challenge, tomorrow, in Knoxville, because they do such a great job of, one, plugging gaps, making you pass the ball. And, we have a team that we have a bunch of guys, not a bunch of guys, we have guys that can go get their own. We got to do a really good job in this game of being willing to share the basketball and get off it once we draw multiple defenders, because that's what they're going to do. And they just make multiple efforts, and they fly around. And, it's going to require guys to knock down shots. And, we just got to stay consistent with the things that we've been doing.
Coach, knowing your prior history with the University of Tennessee, how emotional will it be, returning back to Knoxville this time as a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it about me. I've been there before as an assistant, so I don't think the emotions will be much different. Played 5 years there and gave, all my blood, sweat, and tears to that university, and had a lot of great times and won a lot of games. And, everything's connected. I don't meet my wife if it wasn't for the University of Tennessee, because I went to Nashville to visit a former teammate, Jordan Howell, and a buddy of mine, Bubba South, whose parents might be sitting right next to our bench actually on Saturday, which would be cool. He was the one that was working out at Brittany's gym, and he was like, "You need to come meet this girl." So, like, if I didn't play basketball at Tennessee, I don't meet my wife, I don't have my daughter. It's all connected. So, like, from that standpoint, and half my groomsmen I went to Tennessee with, like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, was being, in Knoxville. And then if they hadn't fired our asses, like, we wouldn't be here. So, like, best thing that's ever happened to me is being in Auburn too. So it's like, I can't thank them enough for everything that happened in Knoxville. Best years of my life. Did medical sales for 3.5 years. I learned from one of the greatest sales reps in medical sales history, Ron Barzak. I know I'm giving you a lot of names you don't give a shit about, but, like, that all correlated to me understanding how to recruit, sales, and so you know what I mean. Like, there's so many things that happened at Tennessee that have shaped my life to what it is today. So I'm eternally grateful. I would like a Letterman's jacket at some point, because I still haven't gotten that. But, like, my years there, like, were some of the best of my life personally, because it shaped the man I am today. And, a lot of things kind of fell in place for me to, be where I'm at in this year.
I was going to ask you about Nate for them. Seems like really in SEC play he's starting to kind of get going, even more. What have you seen out of him and just the challenge he faces? He's really talented, but also just really large as well.
Coach Barnes and his staff have done such a good job with him. Early in the year when you watched him, he was upright and he didn't really get in a stance and play physically offensively, and people were kind of knocking him off his spot. And as the years gone on, you can just kind of see his progression of being way more aggressive and way more physical in what he does. And there was no better game to look at than the Alabama game. He was a monster in that game, and he's just gotten way more confident and way more aggressive in what he's doing offensively. And that's a testament to Coach and his staff just continuing to work with him every single day. And, they're going to have that kid ready for, the NBA draft come June. And, he's going to be a handful. So, we got to do a great job of just trying to be physical with him and not let him get to his spots on the floor, because when he does, like, he's legit 6'10", 6'11". He's going to shoot right over the top of you. So, they're like, if you were going to compare him to somebody, he's not as good of a shooter as Jabari, but, like, he's got a lot of that in his game. You know what I mean? And, that's what makes him, such a tough matchup, because if you put a guard on him, he's just going to post up, shoot at the top of you. If you put a big on him, he's able to, drive around you. So he's a great player, and, I know our guys are excited about the matchup.
That was my question as well. Just if I didn't know if he gave you any Jabari vibes, and you asked and answered.
Yeah, no, I mean he's a super talented player. Doesn't shoot the same volume of threes that Jabari did, but that his mid range, turnaround jump shot that Jabari had was so good. He has that. So, special player, and big time talent.
Steve, you talked earlier in this just today about getting in the gaps. I've heard you say that. I heard a lot of other coaches say that. It's a new phrase to me. Is it a new paradigm, like defensively, to get in gaps? Patino used to talk about got to get deflections. Is it the same concept, basically?
Yeah, I mean, part of being in gaps is, deflections is more stuff like on the ball, but, being in gaps is more just about offering, help to the guy that's on the ball. Tennessee does such a great job assisting the basketball that might, that could be a challenge, because anytime teams are in gaps, they do a great job of getting off it to the next guy, and they make shots. So, but what we've been doing as far as loading to the ball, since we don't have great rim protection, has been really, it's been the reason why we've won 5 out of the last 6, because we've just really offered help, loaded to the ball, and made teams settle for contested threes. And, while teams are shooting a good percentage against us from 3, you got to kind of trust what it does over a 40-minute game. And, it burned us at Missouri because they made 7 in the first half. But I think for the most part, it's been really good. And it's given our guys more confidence guarding the ball. They know that there's somebody to their right and to their left, just in case their guy does drive by. And so it's something that this team, it's been the identity of this team, and it's one that we got to continue to build on.
Then I was asked you about Gillespie for them. I mean, he never comes off the floor, and he's been really shooting it well at home, especially this year. Just how big is he, and what kind of challenges does he bring?
I mean, he leads them in points. He leads them in assists. He leads them in steals. He does everything for them. He's their best volume 3-point shooter. He's got a lot of, he's really shifty with his handle, can go either direction. Does a great job of setting the table for the rest of those guys, getting other guys involved. So, one of the best guards in our league. But you're right, he's going to play the entire game. So, our guys have to do a great job of defending him without fouling, and, try and wear him out with the things that we're doing defensively. And, you got to make him cover a little bit. But, he's just another guard that Rick's brought in that's just seamlessly fit into that role. And, he's done a great job for him. So, really good player. And, just has such a big impact on what they do as a whole.
You guys compared Sway a couple times in the summer, kind of having the skill set of Isaac Okoro, and there were a couple possessions in the Texas game where you could really, it almost felt like you were watching Isaac there. How much of a boost is it for you as a defensive-minded coach to have a guy developing like that you can sort of deploy in a lot of different ways?
It's great because you can get in film and just watch 30 seconds of Sebastian guarding Jordan Pope one-on-one and be like, that's what it looks like. So if you guys want to play in the NBA like he is one day, guard like him. So it makes everyone be more accountable for their one-on-one defense. He covers up so many mistakes, just because he makes multiple efforts. And he's just a willing learner, while he made some mistakes as well. He's the first one to try and figure out what he's got to correct and how to be better at it. So he just, a lot of his impact doesn't show up in a box score. But man, as a freshman, him and Isaac are 2 of the most impactful freshmen that we've ever had, and he's the difference between winning and losing. So he's been great, and I just know he'll continue to improve as the year goes on.